I always feel like shouting whenever I hear the track from Eric Clapton. I played Tears in Heaven, and before that we had a lovely conversation which was trying to look at the idea, or rather the question of, do fathers have rights? I was speaking with Carl Porter as well as Corne Kruger, who shared wonderful insights primarily from the organization that they spearhead, which looks at the rights of fathers, as well as avoiding, or rather managing, the idea of parental alienation where co-parenting is concerned. Next up is my guest from Ife. He is based in Osun State in Nigeria. The name is Mr. Brian Ebden, who's going to assist me answer the question, does religion perpetuate cultural erasure and xenophobia? Mr. Ebden, you are welcome on Capital Radio 88.1 FM.
Thank you very much, Tico. I appreciate it and welcome. I'm actually in Ife right now, but I've been living in Lagos, Nigeria for the past 13, almost 14 years.
Wow.
So I'm just in Ife visiting the owner of Ife today. He had a son. There's been a prince born to the house of Ife, house of Odudua, on Wednesday.
Yes,
so there's been people coming to visit him from all over the world over the last few days, just to congratulate him and enjoy in the success of the birth of a child to the house of Odudua. Anyway. So.
Yeah, definitely. And I've been told that if ever anyone has ever survived Johannesburg, Lagos, they will definitely survive New York. How true this is?
I lived in New York for 4 years. I lived in most places in Joburg, from Browns Farm to Davidton to Sticks to Pumville to where did Benny live? Not Benny. The guy of the PAC, Khoisan X.
Yes, yes.
Lived out there. This is what I'm talking many years ago. So I've lived in Alra Park as well in Gauteng, and I've lived in Lagos for a number of years, as you know, and I've been all over Nigeria. I found that New York to be pretty easy by comparison.
Yeah. And having traveled so much, one wonders who Brian Ebden is. Give us a sense of who Brian Ebden is.
Yeah, sure. Okay, first of all, over the last probably 20 odd years, I've been involved in marketing communications, specifically focusing and specializing on political communication. I'm the one that, I'm sorry, you have to blame me for. I launched Hennessy and Water and Chandon into Africa in the mid-90s. And that time I recall fighting with the international marketing manager, say, listen, in Africa,
we froze a bit there. Brian, are you still there? I think the courts of Africa are not happy with the Hennessy statement you made. They
have to mix Hennessy.
Brian, you keep cutting there. I think the courts of Africa are not happy with the Hennessy statement you're making there.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I just had a call. Apologies. So I was involved with the. Can you hear me, Tico?
Loud and clear.
Okay, I was involved with the famous Buhari campaign, playing a critical role in that campaign, which was the first time we unseated a sitting president. I assisted in the 29 campaign as well. The 2019 campaign. So that's essentially what I do. That's me, I suppose.
You're sitting in a very influential country. Nigeria is said to be the most populous country in Africa. That's one. Number two, we've seen sectarian violence drawn from religious lines where both the Muslims and the Christians have been at odds. What, in your sense, is the perspective you hold in regards to the foundation and the role of religion in Africa, and how has it benefited Africans?
Well, first of all, we need to understand the concept of religion. Africans, in terms of our worldview, and I'm going pre-colonialism. Mm-hmm. And when we speak about pre-colonialism in Africa, we mustn't talk about the past 500 years when Europeans came into Africa. We have to go back much further to when Arabs came into Africa. we must remember and be alive to the fact that Egypt, Libya, Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco, Western Sahara are all countries, are African countries occupied by colonialist Arabs. So our sojourn in terms of colonialism goes much further than European intervention. Having said that, we need to understand that Africans never had a religion. If you take all of the 3,000 different tribes and of the more than 15,000 different clans and sub-clans in Africa, our worldview was never one of religion per se. We've always had a worldview of spirituality, where our worldview viewed our relationship with the universe, with nature itself, from the point of view that there were two existences that existed simultaneously, one being the spiritual world and one being the physical world. And we transitioned between the two as a continuum. So that's the first thing. So it was never about a religion following a guide of some guy doing A, B, C, D, E, etc., etc. So long before the Arabs invaded Egypt, we had a worldview of deep spirituality. That is essentially where we come from. So I think perhaps the word religion is incorrect. We've never understood the concept of religion. In fact, we're still struggling with the concept of religion up to this day.
When you speak of Africans, one is almost forced to assume that these Africans you make mention of are a homogeneous group. Are they? And number two, did we even have a culture to begin with prior to the arrival of missionaries in Africa?
Okay, sure. So first of all, it's like, you know, when you take white South Africans who are engaged as we speak in revisionist history, racist revisionist history, trying to lop two major groups or three major groups in South Africa vis-a-vis the Khoi and the San, lop them together and call them Khoi San. Two fundamentally non-homogeneous groups, two very heterogeneous groups. And this is, you know what, Khoi San. And then Bantu. What is Bantu? Bantu we know as people. But who were those people? Xhosa, you are just all together there, you're all Xhosa. Xhosa were never Xhosa. There was Amakwati, there was Hlubi, there was Khakhabe, etc., etc., etc. And then all the 700 odd different clans within the Eastern Cape region. Similarly throughout South Africa. So were Africans homogeneous? Not even in our genetics were we homogeneous. How can Africans be homogeneous if we show the most diversity in terms of our mitochondrial DNA? So just from even on a micro level and a super micro level, from a mitochondrial DNA point of view, we're not even homogeneous. We are completely diverse. So there are more than 3,000 live unique tribes with more than 3,000 unique ethno-linguistic groups speaking languages that two groups can't even understand. Case in point, two cases in point. Let's come to Nigeria quickly. Nigeria's got 351 unique ethno-linguistic groups who speak every single day, 351 unique languages which most groups can't understand. If you go to a little city in Kebbi State, which is in the northwest, in one town, which is probably the size of Beaufort West, there are 16 unique ethno-linguistic groups who can't understand each other, living there for hundreds of years. You go to a state like Taraba State. There are 81 unique languages in Taraba State. What does this tell you? Immediately, when you see so much a country, a continent with so much languages, it gives you the notion of time. It implies that people have been here for thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years, regardless of proximity. Okay, so I hope that answers the question.
Definitely it does. Is there any validity to the question of linking xenophobia or Afrophobia to religion, and to what degree is this assertion true, if there are any linkages between the two?
Okay, I see. That's a very clever question, and let me say, I'll explain to you why it's a clever question.
Mm-hmm.
The fact of the matter is that the advent of Islam on the one hand and Christianity on the other hand, Christianity brought to Africa a sense of otherness, that a sense of exceptionalism, because Africans by our nature are not exceptional. We struggle with the notion of exceptionalism. In other words, that are you saying you're better than me? Are you saying that your history, the river you grew up with, the tree that gave us shelter, or when we were whistling at the cows to come this way, or you understand what I'm saying? Are you saying that reality is better than my own reality when I was fishing, picking up perlamoon 2,000 years ago from the ocean? Do you get where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
So it's not about exceptionalism. And this is what religion, particularly Christian and Islamic religion, brought to Africa and imposed upon Africa, that when you're Christian, remember, if you go to, first of all, if you understand the Bible, Leviticus 25, 44 to 46, Exodus 21, 20, 21, it talks about slavery. It says that you can actually have slaves. It actually agrees that you can enslave people. And then you go to all of the papal bulls. I don't know if you know about papal bulls. Now, papal bulls, which was by various popes, starting in 1554, saying that, you know what, go after all of the Saracens, go after all of the pagans. If you get their land, take their land. If you get them, murder them where you find them. And this is what fueled colonialism. It gave justification to colonialists from Van Riebeeck all the way to Amerigo, to all of these people, murdering 100 million northern indigenous Northern Americans, murdering 35 million South Americans, coming into South Africa, murdering 2 million Khoi and San people, murdering another 1 million Xhosa people. Do you understand? And then saying, you know what? Oh, it's Shaka. Do you get where I'm coming from? It wasn't Shaka, but that's besides the point. So it justified, like the Afrikaners justified their brutality, their theft, and their treatment and intervention of African peoples over the past 300 years, in terms of saying that, but you're not human. The Bible tells us that we have a biblical right to this land, where there's no such thing. The notion is not just ludicrous, it's bloody stupid. And this was all moved, motivated, supported, underscored, underlined, and endorsed by religion. When I say religion, I'm talking now about particularly Christianity. Let's not even begin about Islam. We will not forget that that Muslims out of Saudi Arabia and Arabia took more than 100 million Africans, of which 90% died. After the men were castrated, the women were put into harems. Thousands upon thousands upon thousands of African women were enslaved in harems. This is a historical anthropological fact. And this was all justified by the fact that, well, they're not Muslim. And that is why you find hundreds of millions of Muslims around the world, not because they on their own recognized that Islam was a better or a greater or a lesser religion than what they followed, but we'll murder you all if you don't say Alhamdulillah, la ilaha, Muhammad Allah. Do you know all of that poppycock? If you go to Russia, if you go to Eastern Europe, millions of people became Muslims overnight, because if you weren't a Muslim, they'd murder you, and that's historical fact. But I want to tell Muslims, if Muslims are watching the show, let me break down something for Muslims right now. Those Muslims that have been to the Kaaba. Because when we understand the notion of God, a creator, as Africans understand a creator, all African groups, without fail, believed in a singular God, believed in a singular creator. I don't know, Toki, which tribe you're from in South Africa, but if you go to, pardon?
I'm Sotho.
Okay, you're Mosotho. Okay, so if you go to Mazulu as an example, Mkulukulu is a singular creator. Is a singular creator. Khoi, Xhosa, all of us. It's this Kamata. was a singular creator. There was never this polytheism. Of course, we never ever, and even up to today, Africans do not worship our ancestors. Let's put that in perspective. We revere our ancestors. There's a difference. We revere the memory and the lives and where our ancestors have been buried. We revere that. And Europeans and Arabs have chosen to disturb the graves of our ancestors like they have in Egypt, picking up mummies, and you understand, people are dead. If we were to go into England and just go and pick up white folk and study them, there would be outrage. There would be massive outrage. Or go to Makkah and go and dig up graves of these Arabs. There would be a massive outrage. But I want to share a message just very quickly. If you understand the notion of symbolism, codified symbolism, which is an African spiritual base, go to Kaaba, go to Makkah. The stone, which is the most venerated point of all Muslims in the world, is a black stone. And within the black stone is another black stone, and which covers the black stone, which is in the black stone, is a black cover. And the symbol of the devil and evil is a small little white stone where they throw 7 stones against. And still there's no pop going off in these Arabs and these white people, all these people, including African people. There's no pop going off in our brain. We are seeing this deep symbolism of power, symbolism of spirituality, which is, do you understand anything with relation to the pineal gland? The pineal gland is the singular object other than a black hole, which contains the most densest, deepest concentration of melanin of any creature in the world. It's so dense that in a black person, only in black people, we have the concentration of melanin, which is equal to a black hole. Now, no other human beings have these things. So we as spiritual individuals, we have gifted the world with spirituality. The Quran, the call to pray, which is the adhan, was created by a black man, Bilal, who was an Ethiopian. He got on the Kaaba and he called to pray. Muslims mustn't forget that the style of recitation of the Quran was invented by a black man, not a Muslim, not an Arab. So we gave them the soul. And when you go to Christian churches, these Christian churches will talk about all the miracles and poppycock today. All of these things were given to them by black people. Black people have given Christians soul, Christian religion, soul, song, dance, rhythm. This is what our gift to the world and the universe. But I want to come back to, I think, to one of the important questions you are asking. You know, the notion of miracles in Christianity today. And I think, if I may, I just want to look at the time quickly, because I know you've got very limited time. Okay, I've got 8 minutes, I've got enough time. I've got the time again. So let's just look at Christian religion. First of all, come inside. First, my apologies. First of all, what is Christianity based upon? How many African people have actually studied what Christianity is? Christianity is nothing more than a fake religion. I challenge any Christian, anywhere on earth. I don't care if you're a scientist, a doctor, anthropologist, historian. There was no such thing as Jesus. Jesus was a fake creation, created in 365 during the Council of Nicaea by Constantine, quote unquote, the Great. It was a creation. And at that time, the overarching religion or spirituality was the cult of Isis. And the cult of Isis was an African woman. And Isis' son was an African child by the name of Horus. Horus was born 3,650 years ago. Okay, this is 2,650 years, 1,650 years before the so-called Jesus character. He was born on the 25th of December. He was born from a virgin Isis. There was a star in the east, and you can, this is easy to even see. He was three wise men came to check on his birth. At the age of 5, he left the temple. He came back at the age of 31, and he was baptized by his cousin Anup. He raised his father, Osiris, from the dead. he had 12 disciples. He performed miracles. We refer to this, the only begotten Son of God, etc., 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 etc. He was crucified in a tree for 3 days and ascended bodily into heaven. This can be found cut into stone in Egypt, which is in Africa, by the way. So we ask ourselves the question, what is the truth of these religions when it's all been copied from African tradition? So if it's been copied from African tradition, and this guy Jesus never existed, he was an invention, he was a mythical character. There is more than, there is not a single scientist, there's not a single anthropologist, historian, etc., etc., that can even bring a smattering of evidence that anybody in the Bible existed. Anybody. In fact, Kiko, if you were to go to the biggest museum in the world, which is in Trafalgar Square, the British National Museum, you'll find 82% of all of the stuff in there Africans. So let me ask you a question. How come you can find Africans, you can wear our shirts, our clothing, our toenails, our nails, our hair, our wigs, our afro combs, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,000 years old. You can't find a fingernail of Moses, of Jesus, of David, of Solomon, of all those flunkies in the Bible. Not a single one can they bring to the table. But it's all in the Bible. Well, the Bible is the word of God. Really? There's 1,880 verses. So the question is, what has this done to the African psyche? And we have to ask ourselves the question, and we look at the rest of the world, we look at Africans, and we have to say that the intervention of religion, of these international religions, these interventions over the past 500 years has arrested the development of Africans. And we look at Asians and we ask ourselves, why are Asians moving as they are moving when genetically they're not even close to Africans? And I'm going to say this categorically. There is no single group on earth who has got the intellectual capacity, I'm talking potential genetically now, the physical and the spiritual capacity and potential that Africans have got. It is scientific, genetic proof. I don't care what anybody wants to say about this. You must face fact and wake up to the reality. Africans dominate everything. Everywhere we go, we dominate. And that's why they keep us out of the game. As a continuum, and they must cheat and fool and trick us into believing that David Beckham's a great football player and not Ronaldinho, that Pirlo and Xavi is he's a brilliant midfielder and not JJ Okocha. Do you understand what I'm saying? That all of these other strikers are not as good as Ronaldo and Didier Drogba, etc., etc., etc. But as a continuum, our people continue to rise far greater than they can. Tiger Woods, Lewis Hamilton, Serena and Venus Williams, and now we got even this little Japanese girl. We got the little the other little 16-year-old African girl. So the question is,